Hello, everyone. We'll take a moment to allow everyone to gather their seats. We're going to start the programming with a land acknowledgement. Thank you all for settling down. To introduce myself, I am Shaka Talem, the ASUC Student Body President, serving my second term now. And we're going to begin this event with a land acknowledgement, as mentioned earlier. We take a moment to recognize that Berkeley sits on the territory of the Ho-Chinn, the ancestral and unceded land of the Chochenyo Ohlone, the successor of the historic and sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Ohlone people. We recognize that every member of our Berkeley community has benefited from the use and occupation of this land since the institution's founding in 1868. Consistent with our values of community and diversity, we have a responsibility to acknowledge and make visible the university's relationship with and to Native peoples. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold the University of California, Berkeley more accountable to the needs of American Indian and indigenous peoples. We know that many of you are from different parts of the world and are likely on the land of others, and so we welcome you to take this time to also acknowledge that as well. Thank you all, and let the event begin.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to see you all here today. This is really an exciting day. Good day, everyone. Welcome to the future site of Gateway, where data-driven, multidisciplinary research efforts underway at Berkeley will be taken to the next level. This new facility will be a collaborative space for more than 1,300 faculty, students, researchers, and industry partners. A place of possibilities where everyone at Berkeley and beyond can come together to work on the brightest future possible for us all. In many ways, the Gateway is the crown jewel of our $6 billion Light the Way campaign. It represents everything we aspire to here at Cal by bringing a richly diverse group of faculty, students, staff, and industry collaborators into the Berkeley community under one roof to address some of the most challenging issues facing our world today. What we've learned over the last 3 years with the COVID pandemic is that we're not only at our best when we work together towards a common goal, but that we can achieve great things, things that even 5 years ago could only have been dreamed about. This work is increasingly made possible by philanthropic support. To that end, I'm delighted to report great momentum in our comprehensive fundraising campaign, Light the Way. We've raised $5.8 billion so far toward our $6 billion goal with just a year and a half to go. Yeah, that's great. The Gateway was also made possible by an anonymous donor who has the vision to accelerate the transformation of computing and data science here at Berkeley. Their generous gift, and the gifts of many others, will support the construction of the Gateway, the new nexus for collaborative integrated data science and computing, education and research to solve societal problems. A portion of one of the gifts will also fund 2 new full-time faculty positions in computer science. We look forward to announcing additional significant gifts in the coming months as we continue to build our base of support. Our success in this campaign is a truly positive sign that our community of alumni, Cal parents, and friends cares deeply about Berkeley. Your support is what makes Berkeley's excellence in the creation of new technologies and innovative approaches possible. Your support is what enables us to address the most pressing challenges facing our world. From mitigating climate change and tackling our ever-changing environment, to addressing challenges in health and biomedicine, human welfare, and social justice, the Gateway will empower us to address the human dimensions of urgent challenges by applying the power of data and computing in a rapidly evolving digital world. The Gateway building will be a physical gateway to the campus. It will be a place of possibilities where all are welcome. It will also be an intellectual gateway, a connector between diverse voices, perspectives, and disciplines. This facility has been designed as the ultimate collaborative space by the award-winning architecture firm Weiss Manfredi in collaboration with Gensler of San Francisco. Over 1,300 faculty, students, researchers, and staff, drawn from different disciplines, will work hand in hand within its walls to change the world as we know it. The work that will be conducted at the Gateway will help us make our planet better, safer, and more verdant than ever before. These change makers will lead us into a brighter future, one that creates opportunities for everyone, no matter where they come from or what obstacles they find themselves against. By collaborating on next-generation innovation and technology, they will find solutions that can be brought to scale much faster than if they were working alone. Best of all, the Gateway will be a place where all students from across the Berkeley campus and beyond will have access to faculty and industry partners who are eager to train the next generation of leaders in the data sciences, to guide them in the creation of new fields of inquiry and new industries that will transform our world yet again to the benefit of all humanity. All of you as alumni, Cal parents, and friends are our partners in shaping that better world. And we're inspired by your response in stepping forward and supporting the university. The Gateway would not have been possible without your partnership. And now I'd like to introduce Jennifer Chayes, Associate Provost of the Division of Computing, Data Science, and Society, and Dean of the School of Information. Jennifer has been instrumental in planning for the Gateway and providing vision for the world-class research and education in computing and data science happening on this campus.
Thank you, Chancellor Christ. I'm delighted to be with you all today as we witness the groundbreaking milestone that will make the Gateway something that we've dreamed about and planned for, an amazing place of possibility. I'd especially like to acknowledge Marian Weiss and Michael Manfredi and the creative professionals at their award-winning architecture firm, in collaboration with the amazing architects and designers at Gensler San Francisco. It's been a transformative experience to witness your creativity and to partner with you on this expansive vision. This will be the first building on our campus designed for a post-pandemic world, providing novel and flexible ways to work and learn. When it opens in a few years, the Gateway will become the new home of computing, data science, and society at Berkeley. It will provide much-needed space for faculty, students, researchers, and staff from disciplines across campus, united by a shared interest in using computing and data science to advance the greater good. As we're all increasingly aware, our lives and communities are being changed by computing and data science. The platforms on which we innovate, communicate, transact, make decisions, and allocate resources. At Berkeley, we believe that computing and data science are for everyone. Our work at the Division of Computing, Data Science, and Society creates accessible and equitable educational opportunities and catalyzes groundbreaking research to meet society's greatest challenges. We need diverse perspectives, experiences, and expertise to ensure research and applications represent the needs and interests of society. And we are committed to increasing diversity in computing and data science careers. That's why we're reimagining inclusive collaboration to tackle the technical, scientific, social, and human dimensions of the urgent challenges we face today. We bring the power of computing and data science to address consequential problems in areas including biomedicine and health, climate and sustainability, human welfare and social justice, and so much more. Thank you all for partnering with us to realize this vision. We look forward to seeing progress on the Gateway and on computing, data science, and society. It's now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Tsu-Jae King Liu, Dean of the College of Engineering and a fellow faculty member in the Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Sciences. Tsu-Jae has been a key partner with me in planning for and supporting the Gateway and CDSS.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm also delighted to be here with you all to celebrate this milestone groundbreaking event. Here at Berkeley, the nation's premier public institution, the work that we do to educate tomorrow's leaders, to advance knowledge, and to innovate new technologies is all done in service of society. The Gateway is a bold statement of our commitment to serve the public good in an ever-changing world, as it will bring together brilliant minds from diverse fields and leverage advances in computing and data science to accelerate discovery and leverage and address society's most pressing problems. Solutions to the complex challenges that we face today really require collaboration across multiple disciplines. The architects at Weiss Manfredi have designed a beautiful building where multidisciplinary research and learning will catalyze new fields and new industries. It will provide space for researchers and students from the Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Sciences to collaborate with colleagues here in the fields of statistics, in environmental sciences, and in the biological sciences to advance knowledge and create new solutions toward a healthier, more equitable, and sustainable future for all. This is the vision that we have for the Gateway. We couldn't have gotten to this point without the support of many of you, and to whom we are most grateful today. So I look forward to seeing you all here again in the not too distant future to celebrate the grand opening of the Gateway. Thank you.
Thank you, Tsu-Jae. I'd like now to welcome today's panelists to the stage for a discussion about the Gateway. Please welcome Anca Dragan, an associate professor in the EECS department, Seri Khoury, a PhD student in the Department of Computer Science, Nitesh Nagpal, a student studying economics and data science, and Ian Stoica, a professor in the EECS department and co-founder of Databricks. Please welcome our panelists. So before we begin, I'd like each of the panelists to introduce themselves, and why don't we begin with you, Anca?
Sounds good. Hi, everybody. I'm an associate professor in ECS. I do work on robotics and AI agents that are meant to work with, around, and in support of people. And so I want you to imagine autonomous cars or quadrotors that navigate seamlessly around us, robot arms that help patients with quadriplegia or motor impairments live more independently, or even recommendation systems like YouTube or Twitter that work to bring us happiness and give us value instead of maybe amplifying the political divide and getting us to click on stuff that we don't want to spend our time on. So we work on human behavior models, on predicting human actions and coordinating well with people, and also at enabling these agents to interact with you to figure out what it is that you actually want.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Seri Khoury. I'm a PhD student at the Computer Science Department. Fortunate to be advised by Professor Shafi Goldwasser here at Berkeley and by Professor Amir Aboud from the Weizmann Institute. My main research interests revolve around theoretical computer science and more specifically about network analysis and network algorithms.
Hi everyone, I'm Nitesh Nagpal. I'm a fourth year here at Cal. I'm studying econ and data science. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so California is a little out of my comfort zone, but I love it out here. Love the Cal community. Other than that, I don't do much research, but I spend most of my time running back and forth on campus, attending my econ and stats classes, so yeah.
Hi, I am Ion Stoica. I am a professor of ECS, and I joined Berkeley almost 22 years ago. And I've done my research is in distributed systems, networking, and more recently, machine learning, the scalable machine learning. And I've been part and I've led a few labs at Berkeley. And part of these labs, we also developed tools and open source systems for addressing some challenging problems at that particular stage in time, point in time. And this includes things like Apache Spark, more recently Ray and Mesos. And together with my students, we also founded some companies. And like you heard, probably the most well-known is Databricks, which is actually started as around one of these open source we developed here, Apache Spark. So very happy to be here.
And Ion and I are both from Romania, actually.
Thank you. So my first question is for the whole panel, but I'm going to start with Nitesh. As an undergraduate studying economics and data science, how do you see the Gateway empowering your ability to work with other multidisciplinary collaborators on projects, and could you give us an example?
Yeah. Thank you, Chancellor. So as an undergrad student, you quickly learn as you go to all your classes that the majority of the people are not actually data science majors or CS majors. Data has become so influential in the modern industry that almost every major, every student, whether that's biology, public health, engineering, or even economics, they need these data techniques to really work and enter the industry. So I think the Gateway is going to really help all students throughout all majors find a home to come together and find necessary resources in data to use, collaborate, and empower their decisions and come up with new techniques. So it's really setting a base and a foundation for all students here on campus who are interested in data science to come together and work collaboratively together.
Thank you, Nitesh. So Anca, Seri, and Ian, the same question.
One interesting example that I've recently started to dive into is this notion of recommender systems and how do you get them to bring value, as I was just mentioning previously. And what's fascinating about that problem is that you can't solve it as solely as an artificial intelligence researcher, right? So the more you dive into it, you realize, okay, so the content that these things are showing us are influencing our beliefs and are influencing our preferences. And now you're starting to talk about, well, how do we develop models of this preference shift? And then you start talking to philosophers, for instance, about, well, what does it mean to bring value to you if if what you value changes over time. Do I bring value to you now or to the future you? Is it okay for me to influence you, to have certain values or not? And so I find this kind of projects really fascinating because they involve moral philosophy, they involve behavioral economics, they involve cognitive psychology, they involve even things like economics, right? Thinking about markets, thinking about the incentives that these things are providing to the producers of content that react to what the consumers of content end up being recommended and click on and so on. So there's all these disciplines coming together. And yeah, I'm pretty thrilled to have a space that enables that kind of work to happen.
Thank you. Seri?
Yeah, so I will talk more broadly about the experience of PhD students. So I think most PhD students, at least the ones that I know, at least wonder at some point in their PhD about the possibility of participating in a multidisciplinary project. But you know, when you want to solve a multidisciplinary open question, you either need to be an expert in all the areas involved, which is very hard, especially when you're a PhD student, or you need to have constant access to experts from these other areas, which is also not so easy because these, they also have their own problems and their own research areas that they need to focus on. So I think that such a building like the Gateway that is dedicated to bring people from different areas together to collaborate might actually provide the right conditions for those of us who want to participate and contribute to multidisciplinary projects. And you know, when you're a PhD student, it's really special to solve an open question. It's really something special to experience. And I think it's going to be even more exciting to discover that the techniques are widely applicable.
Thank you. Ian?
Yeah, so the way I see it is that the technology, whatever we are doing, it's impacting more and more the society at large, right? So that's fundamental trend, and it's just accelerating. So in order to improve this interaction, to understand it, to strengthen it in positive directions, we really need to understand about how this particular impact, and there is no way to do it without coming together both from technology front, economy, psychology, and all the other disciplines to really solve these problems all the way.
Thank you. So, Ian, as an entrepreneur and investor yourself, you had a lot of input into the early stages of planning the Gateway. From your own experience, would you give us some understanding of where data sciences is headed in general? And how do you envision the Gateway will give our campus the edge in leading the next generation of data scientists and researchers?
You give me too much credit. So fundamentally, obviously the data science is about data. And we get more and more data today. And you've seen the power of the data, right? That's actually, look at some of the largest companies today, Google, Meta now, and others. Really, at the end, at the core are the data companies. Of course, it's not only about data, it's what you are going to do with this data. And I do think that we are just scratching the surface. If you think about, all these kind of big data things, it's like 1 decade, a little bit more over 1 decade old. So in the big picture, we are really, really at the beginning. And as we speak, it's more and more data obviously is generated, coming from huge amount of sources. It's biased, as we know, and all of this. And we really want to, it's once you have this data, what is next? Of course, you want to analyze, to solve problems, and to, everywhere, like medicine. I think it's a revolution out there about how you are going to use data for developing better drugs and things like that. It's really at the beginning. Just to give a sense is that development of drug is between 5 and 10 years, right? This is how long it takes. Now think about that big data, it's around just 1 decade old. So we haven't seen the impact if you are talking about the medicine. And as the same, it's about the other disciplines. So it's about really understanding this data. Economists using psychologists use data more and more. So it's just the core, and some people say, the data is the new oil or whatever. I'm not sure how good is that analogy, but it's fundamental. So, but the next step is about what to do with the used data. And again, here we have machine learning and new technologies. But it's again, my point here, do I know exactly what will be over 10 or 20 years? I don't know. But I think that trends are here, and it will be around data, and it will be about how we are going to do what we are going to do with this data, how we are going to use to solve these big societal problems. And any of these problems we are solving is going to generate even more data, right? So this will be one vector to continue to accelerate, to exponentially, speed up the societal progress.
Thank you. Seri, how do you see this new facility enabling graduate students like yourself taking your research to the next level, and are there particular things that you're excited about?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, most PhD students, or the typical PhD student, usually focuses on one specific area in their PhD. And there are many good reasons for that. Maybe the main one is that, career-wise, it's probably better to be an expert in one thing than being just good at many. So we focus on these, specific topics, and we develop techniques and acquire skills that at first sight might seem very specific to these specific topics, but there are naturally many connections between different disciplinaries. And for example, I work on theoretical computer science and on network analysis, and you can imagine that the concept of networks doesn't come up only in the context of computer science. It's everywhere. We have networks in biology. The brain is a huge one. We have in social science, economics. It's everywhere. And I do find myself sometimes wondering about the possibility of applying some techniques that we develop in networks for these other related areas. And recently I've been talking to my advisor, Shafi, about the possibility of applying a specific technique to a specific topic related to neuroscience. And of course, there are plenty of challenges with that. But I think that the more access we have to experts in these other related areas, the better the chance for us is to discover such connections. And I think that this is the next level. The next level is to take the techniques that we develop separately and see what is their greater potential when combined.
Thank you. Thank you, Seri. One of the most exciting components of the Gateway will be a new robotics lab. Anca, could you talk a little bit about the research you and your students will be able to conduct as a result of this lab?
Absolutely. Yeah, so one example of the kind of project that will be super exciting to do there is a part of this collaboration that we've started somewhat recently that you might have heard about, Carol, me talk about in the past, with UCSF neurology, all right? So one of the big focuses of the Gateway and of CDSS is the intersection between compute and health. And this manifests in many ways, but one of them is robots and the brain. Thinking about brain-machine interfaces and how we can enable patients who suffer from severe motor impairments. So we have a patient, for instance, who has quadriplegia and who's received this brain implant, this ECOG array implanted into their motor cortex. And what he wants to do is pour himself a glass of water and drink it. And what we'd love to be able to empower for him, not next year, but down the line, is the ability to think and have this robotic arm move as an extension of his body, right? As if it's just his back to his old arm moving around and being able to do stuff. Open the fridge door, grab something, pour it, and so on. So I think that's part of it. And of course, this is again going into trying to speak the different languages with experts in other domains and so on. more broadly, the kind of work that happens a lot in my lab these days that I think will only get amplified as we move into the gateway. I can't wait. This can happen tomorrow. So one of the things will be thinking about robotics at large and thinking about how you align robots to what people want, what people care about, to their preferences, their goals. How do you get them to understand what it is that we need help with so that they can properly help us? And so I think I want to emphasize that because, again, I think it comes down to this notion of how do you do interdisciplinary work. When you talk about robots that serve humans in society, you can't talk about just the robotic side. You have to talk about the humans and society side. And you have to start thinking about what are values, and you talk to the moral philosophers, and you have to start thinking about even law, right? So connections with law and with economics are interesting because there's this notion that people think carefully about, which are contracts. How do you write contracts and establish specified tasks and so on, right? And how do you design systems that are robust to those specifications in natural language being ambiguous? We can't specify everything, and we have to have systems that end up resolving that ambiguity over time, systems that are able to interpret everything in context and resolve as issues come up. What does this rule mean actually when you think about this context or that context? And so there's all these different connections that I think will be possible when we have a robotics lab that's not just kind of there in isolation but placed in this ecosystem. So very excited about that.
Thank you. So before we go any further, I'd like to ask the audience to take out your ViewMasters. Remember these, this is a step back in time, and take a quick virtual tour of the gateway. You'll see them loaded with 7 images of the new facility.
What's a ViewMaster? Yeah.
Even though this is a very old technology, it looks like future world out there with you all with your viewfinders in front of your eyes. One of the wonderful things about the design of the gateway is the convening and the teaching spaces. We have social kitchens, which are a wonderful place for everyone to gather informally and collaborate in a communal setting. And that's literally topped off by the rooftop terrace, which will have wonderful views of the campus and also the San Francisco skyline. So it's going to be such an exciting, so beautiful a building, very transparent, so it really will seem like a gateway to the campus and from the campus out into the city of Berkeley. So Nitesh, how do you see data sciences further informing your career in economics? And what are your career ambitions after you graduate?
Yeah. So luckily over the course of the past 2 years, I've learned that the intersection of data science and economics is very large, and I'm continuously searching it. So there's lots of opportunity for me to go out there. I've been lucky enough to have experiences over the last 2 summers in the financial and consulting industries. And I can say that in the financial industry, I was gathering stock data to model out client portfolios and deliver them value, while in consulting, I was working through Congress and pulling out back-end information to sort of streamline their IT operations and write out their business strategy plan. So I can really confidently say that data escapes no industry these days. No matter where you go, you're going to need to know these techniques to really perform your job or accomplish your object to the most successful manner. So for me personally, I really think data empowers all the decisions we make and can lead to better societal outcomes. And I hope to ultimately stay in the Bay and continue to work in equity strategy and deliver my clients value. But ultimately, I would love to open and operate my own research and investment fund to support the equitable and ethical development of up-and-coming countries across the globe.
Thank you. So, Seri, what are your career ambitions and how do you imagine a better future through data?
Yeah, so as to your question about my career goals, I'm definitely going to stay around research for a while. I'm not completely sure yet in what form. Maybe academia, industry. There are a lot of factors related to that, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to stay around research for a while. As to your question about data and the future, so I think that it's pretty obvious for everyone that in the last 20 years or so, the world has been developing very rapidly through data, and I think we're living in even more exciting times. But we also need to remember that data is not always enough, because in a lot of cases we do have some access to some of the data, but it's so huge, so it's unclear how to store it before we can talk about analyzing it. So this is one set of challenges. Another set of challenges is that we don't always know whether we're using the right data. So there are still plenty of challenges with data, and I expect some of the researchers to be concerned about that in the near future.
Thank you. And Anca, the Gateway was designed to provide space for the development of future technologies we can only dream of today. You've already shared a few of these things with us, but could you share some advancements you see coming in the next few years and maybe even decades that you think could get their start at this site?
Yeah, let me start with one that will sound very humble, but it's really hard. I really want to see it happening, which is, so Claire Tallman is standing over there. She does wonderful things with quad rotors, so they can learn to navigate and all that. And I really want them to see around our building actually, delivering things and being able to navigate around us and buzzing around and not getting in the way. So, robots doing their jobs, not getting in the way. That's it sounds very humble, but it's somehow still really hard. In terms of more futuristic things, right? So I'll give you two examples, also in the space of computation and health. One of them is what we call co-processors. So very far away from robotics, but still in this realm of interaction with people. When you have a stroke, your brain, you rehabilitate your brain. It's basically an area of your brain, a region of your brain is dead at that point. So your brain the rest rehabilitates and compensates for that, but not in all cases fully. So you don't always get full recovery. So now imagine that we design these co-processors that cannot just read signals from your brain, but can stimulate as well. So if you've heard about brain stimulation, that's sort of the realms of what I'm talking about. And imagine that they do the job that would kind of take over the responsibilities that the injured region has. So that if you're reaching for something and grabbing it post-stroke, instead of struggling through it and not having the dexterity that you're used to having, it just works. It works as if before you had your stroke. It just that, your body does the thing that you would want your body to do, despite the fact that there's been some damage to your brain. So that's one area that I think is really interesting of co-processors that learn to compensate for injury. And another quick example that I will give is actually from Adam Yala, who's a new hire in computational precision health. So if his dream comes true, then what we'll have is these AI agents that do personalized, and I mean really truly personalized decisions about cancer tests and even cancer treatment. So the way cancer testing works right now is even screening. I'm a 35-year-old white female without a family history of breast cancer. So they're saying, by default, you get grouped in this bucket of people who start getting mammograms, 40-something. If you get cancer before that, tough luck. Imagine that instead a system could actually look at my specific risk factors, could look at previous imaging that's been done, the actual images in an ultrasound, my blood work, and so on. And integrate my preferences, my risk aversion, right? Am I okay with false positives, with biopsies, and so on, in order to avoid this very negative outcome, or do I kind of, am I okay kind of taking the risk? All of that comes together and makes a recommendation of, start screening now and come back, not in 2 years, but in 6 months, because there's some, breast tissue that's starting to look to the AI system like there could be something developing there. I think that would be sort of completely transformative in healthcare, and I'd love to see that happen.
Thank you. So Ian, from your perspective, how does Berkeley continue to work with our faculty, staff, students, and industry partners and collaborators to ensure that data is used in a fair and equitable manner to ensure its benefits will be felt by everyone throughout the world?
That's a great question. So, and it's a hard one. So, I think that actually popping up one level, one of the big challenges, Anca alluded, it's about as you have a bigger impact on society, you are going to interact with people. And as people, we have our own thoughts. So everything from the decision, we know that we make biased decision and so forth. A machine, whatever, sometimes, of course, you can provide biased data, they can make biased decision, but it's much more rational. Right? As humans, we are not very rational. So I think it's that interface, I think that what Anca was talking in terms of, in the context of robotics, but it's much more than that, right? It's everywhere. Healthcare, right? It's like, you are going to give this kind of recommendation, but then you are going to have a physician at the end of the day taking that input and making the ultimate recommendation in terms of also treatment and things like that. And I think I've seen it's one of the biggest challenges. Now, about the data, and this was maybe a digression, didn't answer your question, but I think that there is no easy answer. You need to understand fundamentally what the data tells you, right? This is what everything about, because you need to know what you don't know, and because without I think someone I heard like 2 years ago from our colleagues, I believe from machine learning, there were like 20-something definition of fairness. Okay, I don't know what is the state of the art right now, but maybe it's decreased, maybe it increased. But this is again, it's about one of these kind of challenges. It's kind of more. It's about it's legal. It's about huge. It depends on the context, right? Just read a book recently about how this kind of different, obviously, and you know that, but incentives for even small things. You see, you take it as a given. Once you take that idea and you put, you try to, to translate in a different society, the incentives are totally different, right? And I think it's really understanding the data, understanding the context, and understanding the problems you are trying to solve. You need to put this together, and for different problems, for different contexts, the answer probably will be different.
Thank you. So I have one last question for the panel before we open it up for Q&A from the audience, which is, what is the one thing you find inspirational about being part of the Berkeley community?
Me?
Yeah.
First? Oh, that's a hard question to answer. What I find inspiration, one of the things, is I guess, I came here from Carnegie Mellon. That's where I did my PhD 7 years ago now. And Carnegie Mellon is really good at computer science, but it's dominated by computer science. I moved to Berkeley, and Berkeley is among the #1 places in computer science. But everything else that we do is also, every department is the #1 or #2 department in their area. And so this community of really top minds in every area kind of coming together is, I think, something really, really special that I appreciate a lot.
Thank you. Seri?
Yeah, so I think it's hard to choose one, But if I need to choose what's the most inspirational for me, that was like from my experience, is that it's very easy to see that the atmosphere here is very collaborative. People always want to talk with each other, that we want to change ideas. And you feel it also as a PhD student. And also, with such atmosphere, it really helps when everyone around is brilliant. And that's always inspiring.
Thank you. Nitesh?
Yeah, I think Berkeley is the prime example of diversity of thought, especially coming from Pennsylvania. I came to Berkeley, and a lot of my thoughts and ideals, they were challenged, but in a meaningful and constructing way. And I really learned how to work through conversations and take in different people's perspectives, because it's true, you work with the world's brightest minds here on a day-to-day basis. So it's just inspiring walking around this campus every day.
Ian?
So I think for me, if I were to pick one, would be the pioneering spirit. So I think that at least, it's like Berkeley is typically in many cases the first, at least one of the big universities which kind of open new fields, open new domains. So I think that's kind of it's for me, and I can go on and on with examples. Of course, there are more computer science, so maybe these are not going to mean much for other people. But this is one thing, and which is actually different. Also, when you are talking about other schools, including MIT and Stanford, CMU. Also, I am coming from CMU. I think that Gateway, everything is about that, right? It's about going, touch the boundaries and go beyond them.
Thank you. So now we have a few minutes for you to ask questions. I'd like to invite the audience to join the conversation and ask any questions you would like to ask of our panelists, as well as about how the Berkeley community will be able to utilize this wonderful space of the future we call the Gateway. Yes.
Can you give me an example of a subject or topic in data science that you've decided not to do because it's unethical or the challenges are too great, or is everything just wonderful, wide open country?
Okay, so I would say that we don't prejudge what is in bounds and out of bounds. I think we do have moral frameworks that when we get to a particular subject, we apply those, of course. And I think, as Anca was saying, there are one of the wonderful things about being at Berkeley is that we do have very vigorous discussions about this. But my experience is that whatever we say we're not going to do, something comes along which makes it very interesting. I mean, I'll give you an example. There's a faculty member here, Tim Tangerlini, who is a folklore specialist in Scandinavian studies. You might say, what does that have to do with data science? Well, Tim is using machine learning to, he's in letters and sciences, he's in arts and humanities. He thinks that social media is the new form of folklore. And he is using machine learning to see how we are developing the folklore of today. He speaks at Meta, goes to other places. So you might have thought that folklore and Scandinavian studies might not be well, and then you find Tim Tangerlini, who is a brilliant scholar, who says, no, this is exactly what we should be doing to understand social media in a broader context of how we tell our stories. So I think we shouldn't we shouldn't rule any area out, and I think the Gateway is going to be welcoming everyone in for that.
Thank you. And Shesh?
Yeah, I'd love to add to that, sort of from a student's perspective. I think a really good example is I had the opportunity of taking a data ethics class here at Berkeley, and those are really two ideas that don't intertwine with each other, especially in like the professional industry. If you look at Google and what they do with all their data, we sometimes really question if it's ethical. So I think we don't necessarily say all these techniques are like holly jolly, all of them are a lot of fun to go do. I think we take a very critical approach to what we are doing, how we are using the data, and what are the ethical and social implications of doing those. And I think there's classes here, and the professors take a really good step back to help their students really understand that.
Yeah, if I may add to this, so I think that what Gateway, say 50 years from now or more, what it will be remembered is going to be about what problems people have solved here. That's typically what any great place like Bell Labs, Xerox PARC, or many other research labs in or outside academia are remembered for. Right? The work is going on is kind of all these inventions, and both on the theory and practical aspects, it's about solving a particular problem which is important for society. And when you do that, I think you have to be very open about what techniques you are going to use. Everything should be on the table. Like this, right? It's a perfect tool for solving a problem, when, by the way, has no software bugs. So.
Thank you. There's another question over here.
Hi, my name is Shipra. My daughter just got in EECS department, and we are really happy and proud parents. So she joined EECS, but she is also interested in biomedical engineering. So I want to know that how, like data science, how like Berkeley's research in biomedical engineering, and how she can, what will be the pathway she should take, and what are the research she can take?
Yeah, I mean, one quick answer is, maybe she should go talk to Ricky Mueller, as one person who comes to mind in our department, who does neural dust. So this is an engineering wonder of these little micro nano particles that can actually help you and that they can read from the brain and so on. So it's like a sci-fi, completely out there thing it's going to be incredibly helpful down the line, and it's one of the many examples at the intersection of EECS and biomedicine.
Tsu-Jae?
So I can just augment that. Absolutely. The EECS major is actually quite flexible. It's one of the most flexible majors in the College of Engineering. So we really encourage students to explore majors outside of engineering. So your daughter might want to double major, at least minor, in biology and yep. Okay, well, that's possible. It is possible. We do have joint programs with the Haas School of Business, and our students go on and choose yet another major, maybe for a master's degree. Yes, all endless possibilities here at Berkeley.
Oh, and Ken is right there. He does surgical robots. That's another one.
We have time for one more question.
Well, I first want to just say thank you so much for this amazing group of minds. And my wife and I have a daughter, Sabrina, who's a freshman who came here because she wanted to study data science. But I won't ask you what she should major in and how she should design it. But what I do want to say is,
Chancellor, you asked about what was the most
inspiring thing, the enthusiasm that you folks show. I do have a question. As an MBA, we really emphasized, when I was getting my MBA, organizational behavior. You're all brilliant. You're all wonderfully well-versed in ethics. But how do you plan to manage the people component? Because you can be experts at technology or economics or robotics, but it's the people aspect, isn't it, that generates discovery?
Yeah, so I would say that, when people ask me what is the best thing that I got out of Berkeley, to me, there is no question about this. It's the people, because I met so many brilliant people and I learned a lot from them. And you do need to have and develop some management of conversations with other people's skills or something like that. I don't know if there is a more professional term for this. And I think, the journey gives you that. And you can't escape it if you want to do collaborations, and everyone here does. So, maybe in the first year things will be more confusing, but the more your daughter will advance in the program, she will have more and more opportunities to talk to people, and it will come natural. I wouldn't be too concerned from that, because I believe it's going to come naturally, especially in Berkeley, where the atmosphere is very collaborative.
Yeah, so I will add, so I think that one word I got, it's like, and which I totally agree, it's opportunities. This is what you want to do. You create opportunities for people, right? What does it mean? Inspirational problems to work on, because everyone I know here is a good problem solver, right? And resources, that's it. And you just let them flourish, right? And you help them, you support them, right? At least this is what I found to work the best.
I'd like to give one more answer to that, which is that the university has not only been embarking on designing this place of possibility, which is going to nurture this interaction, but also on an organizational level, CDSS, Computing, Data Science, and Society, is on its way to becoming the first new college at Berkeley in over 50 years. And Chancellor Christ and Provost Hermelin and many others throughout this university, the academic senate of the university. I see Catherine Carson here, who's in history, who helped to form this, 8 or 10 years ago. The university is thinking very deliberately about how to bring people together in the right way. We are sharing the EECS department with the College of Engineering. I mean, we are really, really close, and we are sharing all of this. Complicated, but very, very important to do that. We are in the process of hopefully forming a data science department this year that will have joint hires with many, many other disciplines on campus. So we are setting up the organizational framework and then creating the physical environment that will be the fertile ground for that. So this has been very intentional over the last decade by the university.
Thank you. So now we come to the ceremonial high point of the afternoon, which is a symbolic groundbreaking. And I ask those who are going to wield a shovel to join me at the sandbox. I want to thank everyone, particularly the panelists, for doing such a wonderful job. And we have a unique leadership role as the world's leading public university. I hope the talk today the conversation today was meaningful, provided you with a compelling view of the work being done at Berkeley and the work still to be done before Gateway opens in 2025, 2026. I look forward to seeing many of you again in the ensuing years to hear updates on the Gateway, as well as all the wonderful people and programs that we placed in it. And thank you so much for being part of this event and celebrating with us. Please make sure to pick up your commemorative Viewmaster if you haven't already received one. Fiat Lux and go Bears.